Right guys, so Automobilista 2 version 1.5 is out, and it's out about a week now, and I purposely didn't touch it, didn't review it, because I thought there might have been a couple of updates between now and then. I wanted to kind of let the dust settle, so to speak. So in this one I'm going to do two reviews, right? One is the Rallycross. Very interested to see how it captures off-road, dirt, rally, physics, sliding, and me being used to circuit racing, obviously, and probably 90% of people watching this are used to circuit racing as well. So for me, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how this translates, let's say, into an actual driving experience. Now, I did two quick laps of this, kind of didn't finish them, but we'll be okay. One thing I did notice between the Rallycross cars, the Rallycross karts and stuff like that, I think, and I would advise people, lower the FFB. I'm doing it in-game in the settings menu in the setup where you can adjust the slider, so I'm running between 50 to 60 odd percent. This car's at 60%, and the reason being is contrast that with circuit racing where you want a bit of weight in the feedback, you want to feel the car, you want to feel the understeer, the oversteer, where with a Rallycross, personally I find we need a lightish steering wheel because, well, number one, it's realistic on gravel, there isn't much resistance really, but I also found that if you need to quickly change direction with one hand, particularly anyone using a handbrake, it's going to be very useful. So I don't have a handbrake, but I think after spending a lap or two with this I'm kind of considering it. But let's see what this feels like. I mean, immediately it's kind of, you know, as you'd expect, kind of loose at the back and able to kind of power through the corners. But one thing I've noticed as well is that you really have to try to restrain yourself with the corner entry speeds, because like I say, used to circuit racing, you're going to be used to entering corners at a particular speed, which on dirt just does not happen. The argument for the handbrake, do you need a handbrake driving these? I'm sure it will come in handy, and to be perfectly honest, I think I will invest in one, and I'll have to change my steering wheel as well. At the moment I'm using a Formula V2 from Fanatec, so not really the ideal choice of steering wheel for this, but you know, it works. But I will say driving these is an absolute blast. It's what I find is that you kind of get away with the steering wheel, and even there a bit of understeer, but you kind of get away with, not the steering wheel, rather the handbrake, lack of handbrake, because these cars seem to pitch around so much that the weight shift seems to get the car turned. But I find as well that braking is also a bit of a dark art, because you're on gravel, it's okay to stand on the brake and let the tyre dig in, and I kind of get that impression that they've done that pretty well in the physics, at least it feels that way. Oops, knock off the wiper. But yeah, it feels like they've really focused on that tyre digging in and a bit of the weight pitch of the car as well. I can really feel it. And as far as like Rallycross goes in this game, you know, it was a bit of a, you know, will they, won't they? And I had access to the beta, and we were racing like the I think it's the Formula RX or something, like the little buggy in the beta, and the physics felt good, but there was a few issues like with ground collisions and stuff. But you know, being a beta, we let that go. But the final product from driving the Rallycross car feels absolutely incredible. Like anything, I think a lot of us are going to struggle a little bit to kind of ramp into this, because like I say, a lot of it is down to kind of that kind of controlling the weight of the car, quick steering direction changes, and in a sim it's something that we're not really used to. Lack of grip to this degree, and I don't think anyone has done a kind of a Rallycross sim until now. But yeah, it's great fun. What I love about it as well is you can play with the throttle to kind of allow the nose to bite and then just kind of guide it, and definitely get more comfortable with handfuls of opposite lock on the car. Yeah, definitely I will say this is really good for teaching people about weight control on the car and balance. And even, you know, stuff like this will probably help circuit racing as well, where the weight shift is really exaggerated when you're off-road. And that will only just help the on-road, on-track sort of performances. But yeah, what a car. What an amazing car that is. So yeah, I have to say, let's have a quick look at that replay. Oh, cool. Oh, that is cool, man. The noise and the noise, and you can hear the gravel in the engine. Just that's class. And I'll tell you, a race in these is going to be epic. I wonder what that's going to be like, in fact. It'll either be great or an absolute disaster. But look at the car. You can see the power and the weight shifting as we brake and turn in. Look. Yeah, you can see there it's an exercise in controlling and moving the weight around front to back to the side, letting it hang out a little, and just getting on the power at the right time. It's kind of what I find is it's being comfortable with being out of control. Yeah, what a car. We leave this one here. I'm going to go and grab one of the P1 Gen 2s. We'll probably take it to Silverstone or some fast track. See what that's like from a physics perspective, but the Rallycross gets a thumbs up for me, man. This is going to be great. And what I might do, actually, I might come back to this track after the P1 and take maybe one of the buggies or something and see what that's like. But yeah, let's go and grab a P1 and take it to Silverstone, high downforce, and let's see what it's like both on the aero and the mechanical side. Alright guys, so here we are then in the Metalmoro AJR. This is the Chevy version, it's the Gen 2, and I've taken it to, we're here at Silverstone just to kind of see what it's all about. Now, a few interesting things with this car. It does have DRS on the front and on the rear wing, and it seems like its operation is controlled. Now let me show you what I mean by that. So let's just go outside the car for a second. So I'm at part throttle at the moment, right, but I have to be at close to full throttle for the wing to open, and then as soon as I come off the throttle, the wing closes automatically, right, so no brake. And then watch the front flaps again. If I go full throttle, the front flaps will drop down, and again as soon as I come off the throttle, they close up again. So yeah, nice bit of work from Risa there about how they operate. But anyway, let's do a lap or two of Silverstone to see how this car behaves on a track such as this. Being high downforce, it should be fun. It's where this car kind of should live. So yeah, let's see. Another thing I've done, and one thing I've noticed as well, is that in this version of AMS2, the steering wheel settings on my DD2 have changed somewhat, right? So I used to run a good bit of damping and a bit of natural friction and inertia, you know, all the usual stuff. But I find in this now, with the new update, similar to ACC, I'm pretty much running no damping, no inertia, no friction. The only thing I'm doing is running interpolation at 1, so just to very slightly smoothen the signal. But I have to say, in general, the FFB has improved for the better, without having to mess around too much with steering wheel profiles, which is always a good thing. And I have to say, this does feel really, really good. It feels like a high downforce car, which it is, naturally enough. But more importantly, we've got good feel of the mechanical grip. The front end is a bit more forgiving than the Gen 1 of this, so that slow speed understeer from pushing on too far, where you don't feel the front just from the front pushing too much in the mechanical grip section, that seems to be cured in this particular model. Much better balance, I have to say. There we go, there's that push there. So it's still in the car, but it's certainly not as prevalent as it used to be, which is good as a driver, I think. But yeah, this car feels epic. Ran a little bit wide there, but whatever. It's interesting as well, like how I can feel the aero balance of the car very easily. It's very, very intuitive, this car. It's very... does what you expect it to do. It behaves how you expect it to behave. Looks and sounds great as well, which is always a bonus. Little bit understeery getting into corners. In general, I am getting a bit of a snap at the rear, but in general, it is quite understeery. Yeah, just move the brake bias back a touch. I might just take another tiny bit of TC off the car, but it does feel really, really nice. Just kind of made it a bit more lively on the turn in, just to get the back of it around a little bit. Of course, a lot of it's going to be in the setup work, which I haven't done yet, so, you know. Oh, there we go. There's the rear coming around. Yeah, I've overdone it on the brake bias. Basically, what's happening there is, as I brake, the front pitches forward, the back comes up a small bit, the weight goes forward, which means the rear is more susceptible to locking, so... yeah, just a small few changes there, but I have to say, this V1.5 update, I mean, the physics were always really good, but it seems to be even more refined with every update. And I've always said, and you know, I'm an ACC, let's say it's my main sim in terms of like leagues and competitive stuff and whatever else, but I've always said that when it comes to the actual driving physics, and I've driven all the sims, like War Factor 2, I've driven iRacing before, AC1, ACC, but I do think that when it comes to the actual driving physics and what a car does above the limit, Automobilista 2 does sit top of the pile. And it's objective as well, it's not biased, you know, like the car does what you want it to do, and it does what it should do in certain circumstances. And I find as well that the FFB given from the steering wheel is exactly what you would, you know, like what you get is exactly what the car is doing. There's never any question, and it's instinctive as well. And I haven't driven AMS2 in about 3 weeks. Just have been busy with my ACC leagues and stuff like that. But man, it's like I've never been away. It's like you jump into a car and, you know, how am I able to, you know, drive it, you know, close to the limit immediately, and simply because it does what a real car would do, and that becomes natural to anyone as a driver. So it's not like you're learning a game, you're driving a car. That's how it feels. And hats off to them. Now I know it's a prototype, right? I've never driven a prototype in real life, but what I mean is, like, in terms of how it behaves above the limit and stuff like that, it's predictable. It's what you'd expect. Very, very nice. Yeah, epic. Absolutely epic. Right, I think we will go and get an old tin top. Maybe the Mercedes or the M3, maybe the, you know, something like that. We'll take it to, might take it to Nürburgring. I won't do the Nordschleife because embarrassing to say, but I'm still learning that track. I hit it hard in Gran Turismo years ago when I was on console, but I haven't been on it in any modern sim, and I worry that if I did, we'd not survive a lap. So but yeah, I have to say, physics-wise, again, it's an improvement, as we always do. The car feels like a prototype. We feel the downforce, and what I really like is in the mechanical section, it feels like you're relying on just the mechanical balance of the car. Like, there's no downforce there, and you can feel that, which is really, really cool. Overall, I think, you know, Risa have moved on from V1.4, 0.8 and up now to 1.5. It has been a reasonably good step for sure in the physics department. I think in the content department, it's been very welcome. Like, we have the Gen 2. I mean, look at that, it looks brilliant. Just seeing the car kind of pitching forward. And it seems like they fixed the camber issue in the replays as well. I believe that was in the release notes. So good to see that sorted. But the addition of the Rallycross, which is a big one, and as I've covered earlier in the video, I mean, the Rallycross just, that's really cool. It's a different thing. It's a bit of a mind melt at the moment, because if you're, like most of us, are going to be used to circuit driving, and now you've got to get used to driving a Rallycross car in very unconventional ways, what we're not used to. And it does take a bit of getting used to, and I will be hitting up Fanatec now maybe for a handbrake and a round steering wheel as opposed to a Formula steering wheel, because I do intend to do a bit more Rallycross, but this is epic. Let's jump into an old tin top then, and see how they rack up just purely on the mechanical side of things. Alright guys, so here we are then in the M3, and yeah, this is something familiar to me. I've driven this quite a bit in AMS2, but I suppose let's go and see what it's like now on the updated physics and stuff like that. And I've taken it to Alton Park because that's going to be a track to really lean on it. It's corner after corner, so it should be exciting enough to drive. Okay, so let's take it a little handy because we're just out of pits and we don't want to write the car off into the first couple of corners. One thing I've noticed in general is the force feedback seems to be a little bit heavier, and like I say, another thing I've done even in the Rallycross car and the P1 car that we've just driven is I've reduced the damping and all of that stuff. Now for me, I'm actually running no damping at the moment, so in my Final Lap profile. I'll share my force feedback settings after I've done these little comparisons and stuff like that. And but yeah, it's again, this type of car doesn't have a lot of aero, if any at all really. It's all mechanical grip based, and I can feel even coming into these corners as well that there's nothing kind of gluing the car to the road other than the car's weight and the mechanical weight of the car, and it's very obvious. Yeah, and like the P1 and like the Rallycross car to an extent, the car is behaving very predictably. Oh, little push there, and I could feel that as it happened. Brilliant. Feel the weight balance shifting as we brake downhill, exactly as you'd expect, especially in a car like this with no aerodynamic aid. I feel the understeers are push on with the front raising up a little bit. Yeah, Risa have, I think Risa have really nailed how the car behaves on the mechanical balance side of things. And that's what I love about this this simulator as well, is that you can, you know, it feels more natural than any other sim out there, I think, and to some extent. And then you can also kind of, you can work above the limit. In most simulators you can't. It's like, you know, you step out a bit or you brake too much or you go in too deep and you're instantly bleeding like lots of lap time. Where with this game, and this the physics this thing is running, it's like, yeah, you will lose time, but there's an alternative as well. You know, you sometimes need to overdrive to gain a little bit of extra speed, and that just that adds to the experience as well. we'll do one more lap, and then what I might do is I might jump back to a rallycross track and turn on the rain and all of that and see what a messy rallycross session could look like. But this is really, really good. Really impressed with what Risa have delivered. Like I say, I'd been in the beta on the lead up to the release of this V1.5, but I thought when it's released, the actual release version was quite a bit different in my estimation, which is good. But I also wanted to give it a couple of days as well to like let the dust settle a little bit. But yeah, again, you know, and I'm not surprised either. Right? I'm not surprised that Risa have. Oh shit! I'm not surprised that Risa have released this in this way, which is like nothing short of perfection, really. It's what you'd expect. It's what I would expect. Yeah, everything is right about it, like the curb interaction, the physics, the handling, the aero on the P1s, the mechanical grip on the P1s and on this, and how the car behaves over a rallycross circuit as well. But what I'll do, I'm going to jump into a rally kart in a moment and see how that behaves relative to the rallycross car we just drove. And like I say, I've driven it in the beta for a couple of laps, nothing major. Because in the beta the suspension was, you know, well, I don't know if it's the suspension or the chassis, but every time we'd go over a jump, the impact of the jump would almost like shatter the the steering wheel. So, you know, that was sort of difficult to take, difficult to test, because, you know, you didn't want to hurt yourself or injure yourself. But how cool is that? You can see the weight shifting very slightly. I mean, it's a lot more obvious in the car when you're driving it, but even visually, yeah, even visually, the guys are picking up a lot more detail. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and as I say, it's a big improvement. The mechanical side of the grip circle was all, yeah, that's where the mechanical side of the grip circle in Automobilista 2 was always very strong, but it's definitely refined, and the cars that support the aero, like I know it's the Gen 2 of that Metalmoro, but even I could notice that the downforce just felt very, very planted. Anyway, let's jump back to a rallycross track. We'll turn on the rain and see kind of how messy, how muddy the surface gets. Does it affect the handling, and do we get puddles within the mud? That I'm not sure, but let's have a look. Right guys, so here we are then in the Formula Dirt. So yeah, we've made the track wet. So let's see how this actually handles on a wet track. It's going to be a lot less powerful than the rallycross car we drove, but be interested to kind of see how this plays out. Okay, it's definitely not as tail happy as the rallycross car, but that could be fixed, I'm sure. From a grip perspective, it doesn't seem to be, I know I'm not comparing like with like, of course, but the grip does feel to be similar to dry, although less. It is noticeably less. One thing I don't really like, I have to say, is this this cage in front of me as I drive. It's kind of like, as the car kind of bobs around down the hill and over bumps, the one or two of the cage center lines is hitting the center line of my eye line, and it's just a little bit, it's a bit annoying really, just to see where I'm actually going. I mean, It's not a big thing, but I'd like to see something done with the cage in front of me there, because I find myself trying to look through like a little hole, and it's just, when you're racing on a screen, it's not really that natural. Like there I can't see the apex, and now I can last minute, so just kind of hits the preparation of the corner, to be honest with you. Yeah, not a fan of that. Maybe if there was an option to remove it, maybe, or kind of blur it a tiny bit, or make the cage skinnier. Yeah, it's difficult to see. This actually feels quite understeery compared to the Rallycross cars. Again, it could be just setup related, but I find that if, you know, this level of understeer could probably do with me having a handbrake set up just to get the rear kind of pushed around a little bit. Yeah, definitely could do with a handbrake, I think. Okay, the look behind camera, if you're in a race with these, is absolutely useless, because that's your view. So if you ever want to look behind to see where the opponents are, don't bother. I know we have the mirror, of course, on screen, but you know, if you wanted to race authentically and remove the mirror, the virtual mirror, then yeah, you'd be in a bit of a bother. But yeah, I'm not gonna finish this lap because the cage is annoying me a little bit, to be perfectly honest, and it is. Oh, look, I'm not one to moan and complain, but it is taking away a bit of the enjoyment, if I'm honest. But the car itself looks cool. Probably just need a bit of setup work to get it a bit more tail happy, a bit more oversteery. What I'm going to do before I wrap this video up, by the way, there is another Formula Dirt thing. I think it's called Formula Kart or Dirt Kart, something like that. So let's pause this one here, and I'll jump into that car or kart and see what it's like in the same conditions on the same track. Alright guys, so here we are then in the Kart Rallycross. Let's see what this is like. I think this will be fun. I can actually see where I'm going, so that's a good thing. There is no window wiper on it, so that's not the game's fault, that's just my fault for picking a car with no window wiper in wet conditions. And holy shit, I can feel immediately that there's a lot less grip in the rain here compared to the other one. Oh shit, and very tail happy by comparison. Oh, it just might take me a few corners to get used to this. Yeah, the gear ratios are a bit different as well, I have to say. Yeah, I think in these type of karts that the use of a handbrake might be handy, because okay, let me just jump back to the pits for a second and just change the gear ratios there, because it's a bit all over the place. Drivetrain, want to make the gears longer. Okay, so we can only make it longer by a small amount. Suspension, I'm going to take a little bit of camber off the front just to make it a bit more understeery, because it is quite very tail happy, in fact, as we can see. Probably just a characteristic of the car. My force feedback is feeling a bit weird now. Just a second. Restart the session, because something seems to have happened with the force feedback there. Yeah, okay, so I've tabbed out of the game to go into Fanalab to make sure that my force feedback settings are back, and they had changed. Let me just resave this profile. Done. Right, let's get on with it then. Yeah. Okay, that's better. But yeah, this feels very tail happy. It's like fishtailing when going straight. I'll have to look at the car setup settings to see if there's anything that... Hey, you seen it here first, folks. Let us have a look at the replay, and I like the way Risa have muted the fast forward thing. Wowzers. That has to be a screenshot, doesn't it? Focus distance. Yeah. Anyway, let's jump back to the pits. Yeah, the rear of the car is just far too aggressive. So I'm going to add a bit of camber to it, drop the ride height, spring rate I'm going to soften off quite a bit. Okay, let's see, does that make a difference? It should, in theory. We'll get there eventually. Yeah, probably just needs a bit more setup work. It's really on the straight is where it's unstable. The corners are not so much, but it's like you cannot really touch the throttle. At least that's how it feels. Yeah, I would almost go as far to say that it's almost undrivable in the wet. It's just yeah, it just really lacks a lot of kind of basic grip in the wet. Which, to be fair, I mean, wet mud is going to be pretty bad regardless, but I just feel in some places that it feels slightly overdone. But, you know, it'll be just a skill issue. Let's do another lap and see. Yeah, it does feel very sensitive to like, yeah, that's borderline undrivable, so I won't continue on that. Yeah, like I say, it's probably just not suited to you know, having wet mud and being rear wheel drive. It looks like it has a fairly high centre of gravity as well, so couple all that together, maybe a bit of setup work would help, but as it is at the moment, it's just wouldn't be for me in the wet. But I have to say, overall, V1.5 has been very good. Let me actually, you know, let's be fair to this, right? And let me do the same thing, but this time take a dry track, because yeah, just because it's quite difficult in the wet doesn't mean that it's going to be, you know, equally kind of annoying, let's say, in the dry. But I did find it quite annoying. It's difficult when you're driving along and just the ground is pushing and pulling the car left and right and stuff like that. Let's take off the anti. I'll tell you what. Let's leave the anti-roll bars as they were. Add a bit more to the front just to give it a bit more, well, a bit more. Just to change the mechanical balance so that it's going to understeer before it oversteers, in theory at least. Okay, the audio on the outside is not really balanced with the inside of the car. as you can tell, but whatever. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a bit different in the dry, as you'd expect. Oh shit. Braked when we're leaning the wrong way, and the weight shift just makes the car like a pendulum. Yeah, it's definitely one of those that I need a bit more practice on. It doesn't behave in a predictable way. Let me just go back to the pits because I've destroyed the car. Let's do another one. Yeah, the high center of gravity. It's just can't quite put my finger on it. It's almost like because the thing sits higher up, it feels like the center of gravity kind of exaggerates the movement a bit, which, to be fair, would be normal. You know, something that's higher up, it's going to stay in momentum and keep moving for longer. Yeah, let me try and work with that knowledge and see can I actually complete a reasonable couple of laps here. Like I say, now fully aware that the centre of gravity is going to be a determinant factor here as to how I should drive it, and the back of it doesn't seem to have much grip. Okay, so slowing it down well in advance. Yeah. Yeah, once you understand it, I think it becomes drivable, but it's still a case of kind of getting used to it and driving within a limit, and it's still quite twitchy, like. Not really sure what you're going to get with it. And right there, it turns on throttle very, very easily, and I think that's the problem. It's like the back is disconnected from the front. I'm not necessarily saying that's a physics thing, it's just it's probably just the way this car is. Bit of practice though, I think, I would be okay, but it's like the rear over rotates in a way that doesn't always make sense, I have to be honest. You know, it's like you've got understeer on the front, and then you go to try and give a lot of throttle to kick the back out. And bear in mind you're understeering at this point. And it feels like that stab of throttle over exaggerates the rear to the point where the rear actually snaps violently, and almost like no amount of corrective steering is going to fix it. But you know, and again, and I like right there, and you know, when I was carrying like reasonable speed there, I thought that you know, I think I was carrying so much speed that I was borderline understeering there. Then the back of it comes round, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just a bit of practice that's needed. But yeah, it definitely felt as if it was a bit, little bit overdone. But again, that could be just down to the setup. And one more thing. I'm gonna go extreme on the setup here. Actually, make it more understeery. So I'm gonna slacken off the anti-roll bar. So that should understeer on corner entry. Suspension wise, I'm gonna lower the thing, so I'm gonna lower the center of gravity quite a lot, And you know, that could be half the problem. Spring rate, I'm going to increase the spring rate on the front, take off some negative camber, add a bit of negative camber to the rear. Then I'm going to take off the bump stop. Slow bump suspension, I'm going to slacken that off. Rebound, going to take that off a bit as well. And fast rebound. Okay, so there's a lot going on. Check the toe angle, going to toe in the rear, so that'll give a bit more stability. Anti-roll bars are fine. Okay, so this should be a lot more understeery than previous. See the car drop a bit there as well, so yeah, let's see. If this doesn't fix it, then it's just a characteristic of the car. That's interesting. It's almost like the car, because it's sitting lower, the suspension geometry now looks totally different on the car. Don't remember it being like that before, but let's see, does this make a difference? And you know, I am aware that like a setup can make the car behave like a bag of crap as well. And yeah, this has improved it. It's not as unpredictable. If anything now, it's actually maybe too limited on the front on turn in. But I'm more concerned with mid-corner. Yeah, you can see there that front anti-roll bar being so high is kind of causing a lot of turn and understeer. The back of it is still lively and it's unbalanced now compared to the front, so that's really just setup. So in theory, a better or a softer front roll bar would allow the car to dip in with the same sort of velocity that the rear wants to step out on throttle. But yeah, a few setup changes and this actually feels quite a bit different now. Few understeer if anything, but you know, as again with the setup changes made, we kind of expect that. So we fixed the back of it from over rotating randomly, but now the front of it is just not turning. And again, what I might do is we'll jump back to the pits, I think, and yeah, we'll jump back to the pits and we'll sort that out. That I'm almost certain is just going to be front anti-roll bar. So we slacken that off a bit by 2 clicks, and that should, in theory, that should be enough. I've made a lot of changes to the suspension spring as well and the dampers, but I'm pretty sure that just a few tweaks to the roll bar will just allow the front to bite that bit better. Let's have a look. You would have thought a review of V1.5 would turn into a mini setup session. There we go. There's the front turning a lot better. Okay, that was just me, timed it wrong, but yeah, the front you can see is biting a lot easier. Now we've got a much more predictable Kart. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still like a crazy cat on steroids, like, but it's a lot more predictable. It's a lot more balanced. At least when you dip it into the corner now, it actually wants to turn. Yeah, and you can see the difference that just the front anti-roll bar makes, you know, so we go from running the high anti-roll bar to the car not wanting to turn at all, and then all of a sudden we make a few changes to it, and the car's kind of overdoing it. So I took the front roll bar from 5 to 3, yeah, 5 to 3 I think it was, so maybe 4 or something like that, and a few other tiny suspension tweaks could get this thing behaving really nicely, I think. But I will say, like, this car or Kart appears to be very, very sensitive to the mechanical setup, to the point where, you know, not only will you be quick or slow, but you'll either be finishing the race or not. But yeah, I have to say, you know, Breeze's 1.5 update has definitely, it's definitely a step forward. It's definitely a step forward. See there the marks on the dirt, which I believe this is following the whole real road thing as well. So, you know, if you're in a race with these, and you know, like on any track really, the theory is that the dirt and stuff should divot and change over time as the race goes on. So yeah, really good. Anyway, guys, we'll leave this here. This is Automobilista 2 V1.5, and all of the things to come with it. The Rallycross. Actually, just look at that suspension geometry from me lowering the car. Wow. Anyway, it is what it is. I wonder where the front roll bar going up and increasing the negative camber probably would have fixed all the problems and brought the thing back into perfect balance. But anyway, I'll test that myself. But yeah, version 1.5, what do I think overall? I think the addition of the Rallycross and the off-road, the dirt, is a huge, huge step forward when it comes to content. It's something we don't currently have in any racing game. And I also think the addition of the new like track content, like the Gen 2s of the P1 cars and stuff like that, definitely add to the overall offering of AMS2. Like I say, I'd been playing this a little bit in and out of the beta before it was released, and the final release is actually a big step up in my opinion. But again, in terms of the off-road piece, I think the Rallycross cars are definitely the more exciting, but the more they certainly feel the more natural in terms of the weight shift and the predictability for an off-road car. In terms then of the on-road, the aero balance of the P1 definitely makes a massive difference, and then the mechanical side of things, that car is brilliant as well. And taking that down to the M3 that we drove, yeah, the mechanical predictability of that car again was spot on. No doubt this will be further refined over the next week or 2 weeks, I think. As all things AMS2, you know, the thing is released, a couple of little bugs usually find their way in, nothing major, but we'll see. And when the update pops out, I'll do an updated review, but at the moment, very impressed. Like I say, the off-road buggies and karts are a little bit weird in the wet. One is very understeery, the other is very oversteery. But again, I think that's just down to the default setups being built that way. But yeah, we'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. And yeah, give V1.5 a go. It's really, really good. And yeah, till the next one.
No way.